Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Big night tonight as we get the week 10, the initial college football playoff rankings. 13 member committee has gotten together and given us the first look at our top four teams, top 25 teams, but essentially the top four, first two out, who is in prime position to make the college football playoffs this year. So I'm going to be reacting, just my immediate reaction to everything. Before I get into that, I want to give a quick thank you, a quick shout out to our sponsor, busr.com/fanatic, the official sponsor, the official sportsbook betting partner of Fanatic Perspective. Hit that promo down there as you sign up. Also, new contest. We only have a few days left on the contest. Everybody that's been, competing, if you're here in the state of Texas and you're signed up on busr.com/fanatic and you're an active player, you got money actually down on the website and, you're competing and you're following on all socials, come hang out with Tran and I November 13th. We got 2 ticket giveaway. We will be announcing the winners via lottery type system on our live chat Friday night, November 5th. So contest, busr.com/fanatic. Sign up, get active, and enter for a chance to win to come watch a Texas-Kansas game with Tran and I. Now, before I get into my reaction, I had tweeted before here, and I'm going to show you guys what I was kind of referring to. So I tweeted basically like, look, this is kind of my viewpoint on how I kind of see this thing playing out before the committee announced their actual rankings. So I said, my own personal top 4 would be Georgia, Michigan State, Cincy, OU. My 4 teams in there, I value winning, those guys that are undefeated. And this is also through this current point of the season. The Georgia-Bama thing will work itself out. So Bama will have an opportunity to be in the top 4. If they make it to the SEC championship game, defeat Georgia, we'll get to that later. Ohio State, I was back and forth with that because Oregon probably should be there right now, honestly, with my criteria. But I typed in Ohio State just because I think they've looked really, really good recently. But in terms of my predictions for the committee, which is what really matters, I knew they would have Bama in there. Now, what ended up happening is Bama ended up being 2 and Michigan State was 3. And then number 4 was Oregon, which is not surprising considering Oregon beat Ohio State at Ohio State without Kayvon Thibodeau. Big win. So those were kind of the predictions. But here are the initial thoughts based upon what actually transpired, right? So let's go ahead and look at the actual rankings. So I'll pull that up. Boom. So here we go. Georgia and Alabama are your 1 and 2 teams. So it's still an SEC world. And everybody else is fighting. Everybody else is still fighting. Now we know, hey, the initial arguments that can be made, Alabama, like we said, they advanced the SEC championship game. At this point, we have to assume Georgia makes it to the SEC championship game undefeated. They play each other. That solidifies one spot. Although, if you listen to Joey Galloway on ESPN, it is not, and I agree with him on this point, who's to say that if Georgia wins by some last-second field goal that Alabama still doesn't get in that top 4 and they use the justification for them to be a top 4 team, right? So we have to factor that in. We know Alabama's 1 loss was on the road, Kyle Field, to Texas A&M, who came in at 14th in these initial rankings. So really interesting to see how this plays out. Now, I think personally, and this is just my own, like I said, my thoughts, Cincinnati got screwed. Here's why. They went to Notre Dame, and everybody's telling me that Notre Dame may end up being 11-1. Now, we can't this is based upon where we're at right now, but right now, Notre Dame is the number 10 team in the country. Cincinnati went to Notre Dame and beat them. And here's something else where I factored this in. What else is Cincinnati supposed to do in this situation, right? Because not only did they beat one of the best teams in the country on the road, but and this is where it gets a lot of people are going to argue with me in the comments, and I don't care because it's my opinion. January 1st, and I know they're not the same teams. I know it was a bowl game, whatever. January 1st, Cincinnati played Georgia, right? And yes, some of those people went to the NFL, different teams, blah, blah, blah. Still this year, they played each other. Georgia won by a 50-plus yard field goal as time expired 24-21. Those teams physically matched up. And I say that to say this. The reluctance with these G5 teams is always, oh, well, we don't know how they're going to match up when they get in front of a Georgia. We don't know how they're going to match up when they get in front of an Alabama or these super physical teams. We've now seen Cincinnati match up twice with big boys like Georgia, with big boys like Notre Dame in this same calendar year and lose by a field goal and then come back and beat Notre Dame on the road. What else are they supposed to do? Because now you're basically telling them, and I understand right now people are going to say, hey, well, Steve, chill out. Ohio State and Michigan State have to play each other. That's going to eliminate somebody. And Alabama and Georgia are going to have to play each other. That's going to eliminate somebody. There's a path. Well, not so fast, my friend, because that leads to the second thing. Oklahoma is lurking. These teams behind them are lurking because they basically put Oklahoma at 8, even though Oklahoma is 8-0 or 9-0, whatever they are, 9-0, whatever Oklahoma's record is. They're undefeated. That's the point. They put them there to give them a kick in the butt because they've been BSing these games, and that's fine. But we know if Oklahoma finishes undefeated with their schedule being backloaded with the best teams they'll play, Baylor and Oklahoma State, and then on top of that, if they win the Big 12 and assume they win the Big 12 championship game, they finish 13-0. They will be ranked ahead of Cincinnati at that point, with Cincinnati winning the AAC. That's not even. I don't think that's up for debate with anybody. Is that? So that takes the other spot, assuming what Cincinnati's going to need to have happen is Georgia's going to have to win out. And some of these other teams are going to have to knock themselves off just for themselves to be in position. And they're getting a universal respect. I mean, they're number 2 right now in the AP polls. And I understand, hey, they don't. And I'm normally not the G5 little guy advocate. I'm typically not that guy. But in regards to this particular Cincinnati team, a lot of people tell me, oh, Desmond Ridder could be a first-round pick at quarterback. Luke Fickell's over here. Everybody's, he's the hot name in the coaching circles. They've got NFL personnel on their team. So if we're looking at their particular team and not them just as a G5 removed from everything, I think it's an honest conversation, at least for these first rankings, for them to be at 6, they're in a tough spot having to work their way up. Now, again, whole month left, a lot of football left to be played. Because that's the perspective here, because Cincinnati's at 6, you're upset. If you're OU at 8, you're not super upset because you have an opportunity to play number 11, number 12. Boom, you work back up. The committee's basically telling us we need to put our work in. The committee is telling us Bama gets our respect regardless of the loss, period. Everybody universally agrees with Georgia. Michigan State beat Michigan. Look where they put Michigan. They put Michigan losing. I think they were up at 1 point 30-14 in the second half. They lose. They're still ahead of OU. Michigan is. So Oklahoma's only one spot ahead of Wake Forest, who nobody seems to respect in the ACC. So as long as OU, that whole Big 12, and that's another question I have. Just again, reacting to this real time. Is this a universal disrespect for the Big 12 as a whole? Having an undefeated Oklahoma team, but Oklahoma State's right there, Baylor's right there, or is that just, hey, Oklahoma, you need to wake up, and if you look impressive, we'll move you up? If I'm Cincinnati, we got to start dropping 70 on people. You got to start style pointing, because these, beating Navy by 7, it's hard to make an argument for, even though I know a lot of people say, well, OU skated by Kansas, right? Oregon lost to Stanford. You got people on here with real L's, right? Oregon lost to Stanford. If I'm Oklahoma, I'm like, well, we beat Kansas State and Kansas State beat Stanford. Like, these are the games we start to play. But it's really, really interesting how this all broke out. Also, again, another thing that kind of hurt Cincinnati is, and how they feel overall, no SMU, no Houston. I mean, if we really want to go little guy stuff here, no UTSA. Shout out to Coach Trailer. But none of those Texas schools made these rankings. So very interesting to take a look at. We get Auburn playing Texas A&M this weekend as well, 13 versus 14. So, Auburn's still having to play Alabama. Alabama's only going to have an opportunity to strengthen. We never know what's going to happen in the Iron Bowl. But Cincinnati's in a tough spot to me. Coming here at 6, understanding what's behind them with Oklahoma still having to play all their strong games. Who's the best team they have left to play? SMU. And SMU didn't even make it here. So they're going to have to live on the Notre Dame thing. Notre Dame can't lose if Cincinnati wants to even make this. Like, Notre Dame's legit going to have to be 11-1, which is actually what is expected based upon their schedule. But I think the committee's put them in a tough spot. And honestly, tonight there was a chance in college football to at least say, you know what, we're going to objectively look at these teams, but we're doing the same thing we always do. And, that's why many of us want expanded playoffs. And Cincinnati's not some 1-year wonder like some of these other teams that I don't normally advocate for. Cincinnati showed me something last season. And then they talked that talk and played that game at Notre Dame this year. Like, every opportunity they've had to show what they can do with big boy pads, with a grown-up quarterback, a very good head coach, they've looked the part. So, these other teams, again, Oregon wins out. That's the other thing. I will say this: Oregon being in front of Ohio State, and I screwed this up. Oregon should be ahead of Ohio State until further notice. We'll see how things play out. That game should matter. That Oregon victory on Ohio soil should matter. So that's how they have it ranked here. But we know Ohio State still has to play Michigan too. So a lot left to work through. I think the big story tonight is obviously Cincinnati, OU getting a wake-up call, and Bama's Bama. Bama's still at the top. They're still, they essentially just got knocked down with this. These are the rankings that matter. They essentially only went down one spot with their loss at A&M, and with them having a very disappointing second half against Florida. So Bama's still Bama, and you're going to have to dethrone those guys. Still the reigning champs from last year's previous college football playoff. You guys let me know in the comments what you think about these initial rankings. Just the logic to get there. Like I said, I would have shown more love to Cincinnati. I would have had them in my top 4, just based upon the body of work that they've accomplished this year and just the team that I know that they are. And then if these other teams prove to be elite over time, and, Ohio State right now, that's really my last point. Ohio State's best win is this past weekend against Penn State, and Penn State's fallen off. Penn State didn't even make these rankings. So, we got to – I guess Minnesota and, some of these other schools here, excuse me. But I'm talking about the time they were playing. But Ohio State's meat is going to come from Michigan and Michigan State. And that's fine, especially with the way Ohio State's ramping. So I'm not, the position that they're in right now, I expected that. That's not disappointing at all. But we'll see how the rest of these rankings and whatnot play out. Very, very interesting. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think about these initial college football rankings, and we'll be back with more content. I might consider start making this a live, just to react with everybody if that's what you guys would be interested in. I appreciate everybody coming through. Make sure, hey, when you go on that screen I just showed there, I'll go off to the side, but the screen I just showed here, that is what the landing page will look like for when you get on BUSR, right? So that right there. But anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody jumping on. Hit me in the comments. Contest going on, busr.com/fanatic. Hit us. Peace.